Hi everyone, my name is Jeff Gatz. I'm excited to talk to you in this lesson about note values. I hope this lesson will go a long way in helping you understand how to read and count through musical notation. And after you watch this video, I also recommend that you watch some of my other videos on understanding rhythms in 4/4 time. All of them work together to help solidify your understanding of time signatures and rhythms. You can check those videos out on my website, gatsdrums.com, or on YouTube here on the main page or up here. First, before we begin, please do me a favor and click the like button and subscribe to my channel. That'll go a long way in helping me create more videos for you like this one. So as you may already know, written music is divided into bite-sized chunks known as measures, or also known as bars. I think it's helpful to think of a measure simply as a representation of a length of time. That length of time can be filled up however a composer wants, using the pitches and note values that they want. The location of each note, written up or down on the lines and spaces in a stave, tells us the pitch of the note. The appearance of each note tells us its duration or its value. I think it's easiest to understand the concept of note values and duration by learning how all of the notes relate to one another. This is an example of the rhythm tree. At the top we have a whole note, and beneath it we have quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes. Essentially, as we look from the top of the tree to the bottom, each note gets divided into two equal parts to form the notes immediately beneath it. Those two notes have half the value of the original note. So a half note is equal to half of a whole note, quarter note is equal to half of a half note, or to 1/4 of a whole note, an eighth note is equal to half of a quarter note, or 1/4 of a half note, or 1/8 of a whole note, and a 16th note is equal to half of an eighth note, or a quarter of a quarter note, or an eighth of a half note, or a 16th of a whole note. There are also notes called 32nd notes and 64th notes, and they work just the same as all the others and take these divisions even further. It's also worth noting that rests follow the same principle. So, for example, a quarter rest divides equally into 2/8 rests, and so on. Alright, so now let's look at how the concept of note values is related to time signatures. Here is a time signature symbol. These symbols appear at the beginning of a piece of written music or anywhere else within a piece of music where the composer decides to change the time signature. It tells us two very important things. The top number tells us the number of counts or beats per measure, and the bottom number tells us what type of note gets a single count. So in 4/4, the top number is a 4, which means that there are 4 counts per measure, and the bottom number is also a 4, which tells us that a quarter note gets a single count. So, what that means in practical terms, if you're counting along through each 4/4 measure, is that you'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, and again in the next measure you'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, and that will repeat until the end of the song, or at least until the time signature changes. Each of those 1, 2, 3, 4 counts represents a quarter note. Now if that didn't make sense to you, or if you'd like to dive a little bit deeper, please watch my video on 4/4 time here. Now let's see how this relates to our note values. Take a look at this table. Alright, I know no one wants to get really deep into math here, but when trying to understand note values, it is helpful to think of notes as fractions that need to add up to 1. So if we think about the 4/4 time signature symbol again, another way of saying that there are 4 counts in a measure and that a quarter note gets a single count is basically just to turn it all around and say that the duration of a measure of 4/4 time is equal to 4 quarter notes. And knowing that, we can use this table to figure out how all of the other note values relate to one another. Okay, so for example, the first note value here is our friend the whole note that we met in the rhythm tree. From the rhythm tree, we know that a whole note is equal to 4 quarter notes. And if a measure of 4/4 time is also equal to 4 quarter notes, then we can say that a whole note is equal to a full measure of 4/4 time. Therefore, if we want to use fractions to represent a whole note, it would be the number 1. It's also worth noting then that if there is a whole note in a measure of 4/4 time, there's really no more room for any other notes in that measure. Okay, so next we have a half note, and it can be represented by 1/2. So if a whole note is equal to 1 measure of 4/4, then a half note is equal to half a measure of 4/4. You can have 2 half notes in a measure of 4/4 time. Alright, so moving on, we kind of already know this one, but a quarter note can be represented by 1/4. So we can have 4 quarter notes in a measure of 4/4 time. And again, that's really exactly what the 4/4 time signature symbol itself is telling us. By now you can probably see where this is going. 8th notes, 16th notes, and 32nd notes, and even 64th notes for that matter, all take this fraction analogy further by dividing one measure into 8 equal parts, 16 equal parts, 32 equal parts, and 64 equal parts respectively. Each of these note values divides a measure into smaller and smaller equal parts. Alright, so if you understand that, you should also understand why the following measure does not make sense. If we add up all of these note values, the total is greater than the duration of a measure of 4/4 time. The 2/8 add up to 1/4, the 4/16 also add up to another quarter note, so when we add up 3/4 and a half note, we have a total of 5 quarter notes, and that doesn't fit in 4/4 time. To fix this, either we would need to get rid of enough of the notes to reduce the total by a quarter note, or we could also consider changing the time signature to 5/4, because there's a total of 5 quarters in this measure. Alright, so with that, I hope you enjoyed this quick lesson. Please refer to the notation, which is available on my website at gatstroms.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to add them to the comments area on YouTube. Also, please check out my other lessons on time signatures and counting rhythms up here. And last, if you like this video, please click on the thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.